Stop, thief! This is the 188th Banquet reunion of the Enfield Society for the Detection of Thieves and Robbers. Please give your attention accordingly. Will you all rise for Pledge of Allegiance to the flag and singing of America the Beautiful, one stanza. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And welcome forward. Welcome. We gather together this evening to celebrate an event that happened in the town of Enfield 188 years ago. Now, let's suppose that you were awakened in the middle of the night to find that your house was broken into, burglarized, your car was stolen from the garage, and what would you do outside of being grossly upset? I'm sure. Pick up the phone and call the police, 911, whatever it is, and report the burglary, right? And the second thing you do, call your insurance company and report there was a break-in and the theft of stolen goods, right? You want the value of those goods restored to you. Now, you know, you want the police to pursue the thieves, and we call this the right to bring criminals to justice. The second thing you would do is you would want the insurance company to restore the value of the goods that were stolen. You call this the right to insure for the protection of property. This is quite a luxury we have in the year 2011. But you know, criminal protection and insurance. How did this luxury happen? Did it just spring up overnight? I hardly think so. It started in the 1880s when our country was a very young country, an agrarian society, no steam, electricity, mostly farmers and landowners used the horse was the power, everything was horse-drawn, horse this, horse that. I'm not horsing around either. I mean, this was a matter of fact, okay? And when those things were happening back in those days, dishonest men would break into the farmers' barns at night in their homes and steal the horses and get away before a hue and cry could be made. And, you know, people were concerned with the break-ins, the stealing of their horses, and other items of personal property. Now, this was before the advent of organized police departments and law enforcement agencies, of course. And that was at a time when there was no rapid means of communication like electricity, telephone, telegraph, things of that nature that would bring the attention closer to the law enforcement authorities. It started when resolute men, recognizing widespread dangers, got together to form societies to stamp out these crimes. So on January 30, in the year 1823, when James Monroe was president of these United States and formulating his famous Monroe hands-off doctrine, a group of 35 men met at the home of Peter Feld on Enfield Street in Enfield, and they protested these break-ins and thefts that were not only happening in Enfield, but it was happening all over New England. So what did they decide to do? They decided to form an organization called the Enfield Society for the Detection of Thieves and Robbers. They adopted a constitution which until today has never been amended. Now, how did you get into this organization? Remember, back in those days, you had to be a landowner and you had to be a male. Now, when we say the constitution of this organization says males, landowners, pay a fee of $1 a year, you're entitled to be a member of the association and be entitled to the protection of the society. But what somebody did to that constitution is they put a little phrase at the end of it and said, nobody ever noticed it except me. And that's why we invite women today. That little phrase said, any reference to males shall be applied to females, and females shall apply to males. So I said, hey, we don't even have to amend this Constitution. It's already in there. So we opened the door like 15, 20 years ago and said, women, come and join us. So here you are, you know, and welcome. And you know, you want to know something, and you want to know something else too? You gals have been the backbone of this association ever since. Yes. Sorry to say it, guys, but it's true. Now, what did this society entitle you to? Okay, it entitled you to if you joined and paid the $1 a year back in those days. It entitled you to a posse to pursue the thieves and to have horses of good wind and strong limb which would carry their masters across fields, up and down hills, through the forest at breakneck speed. It was a form of insurance to restore stolen properties. Now, with the advent, 20th century, with the advent of electricity, telephone, telegraph, these societies were becoming more uncommon. By the year 1902, Enfield established electric lights in the villages of Thompsonville and Hazardville. The Enfield Police Department was established in the year 1903. It consisted of 3 policemen and a budget of $300. And Herb Foy was the first police chief. He's still with us. You know, before I came down here tonight, I stopped at the gas station to get some gas, and I bought a lottery ticket. Remind me of what I'm going to tell you now. And that is, in the year 1908, the first covered bridge to span the Connecticut River was here in Enfield. Enfield to Suffield. Bridge Street, Enfield, Bridge Street, Suffield. First covered bridge. And you know how it was financed? By Connecticut's first lottery. It was right here in Enfield that established the lottery for the state of Connecticut. You don't believe me? Those lottery tickets are on display at the Society, Old Town Hall. Down, take a look. And also in the year 1908, one of those 45 men his name was Orrin Thompson. Now, may not mean anything to you right now, but Orrin Thompson was the founder of the Thompsonville Carpet Company that later became the Bigelow Sanford Carpet Company, the biggest carpet manufacturers in the world. Until 1965, the whole textile industry went south and left us barren up here, okay? So, and you know, 3/4 of the people in Thompsonville worked in that mill. Came over from Europe, came all over the world, raised their families, worked, got $9 a week, spent $8 on groceries, and lived the rest of the week, you know, on that $1. Now, those were how many people here graduated, or I say graduated, worked at the Bigelow Sanford Carpet Company? Stand up, let me see you. Give them a hand, look at them. Congratulations for being still with us, okay? All right. A lot of water over the dam. A lot of water over the dam. All right, these societies, you know, they work for a while to detect crimes, but with the advent of electricity, modern communication, organized police departments, most of them disbanded over the years. Suffield disbanded. East Windsor, East Windsor's still going, although they came way after us. Woodstock, I think is still going, but not too good lately. And there are a couple of other towns that still maintain roots in these theft societies. But the Enfield Society is, my friends, unless somebody proves me wrong, the Enfield Society for the Detection of Thieves and Robbers is the oldest organized existing vigilante posse-chasing group in the United States of America. Now, if that ain't a mouthful, I don't know what is. Now, why do we maintain it? We maintain it because it reminds us of our early American heritage. We maintain it because it reminds us that we have a duty to God and country. You know, we do old-fashioned things like salute the flag, sing America the Beautiful, you know, real old-fashioned. And it reminds us because there should be a constant respect for law and order. So why do we celebrate it annually? We celebrate it annually because of what happened by those who made it happen. They have made this world a better place for all of us to live in today. You know, it's been many long years since there's been a horse theft in Enfield. But I want to tell you something, in case there is. The Enfield Society for the Detection of Thieves and Robbers is ready to mount and ride at the sound of the first alarm. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this 188th annual banquet and reunion. Now, there are 3 standing traditions of this society, and we honor those traditions each year. The first tradition is to give rise to a moment of silence in memory of those who have passed the past year. You may be seated. Incidentally, those chimes were donated to this society by a former member and former councilman, I believe, Roger Olson, who died several years ago, and we certainly use that in his memory all the time. And may the memories of those who have passed for us be everlasting. I learned, I think most of you know, that one of our members, Adam Pierce, died on Easter Sunday. So we include him in our memories and our prayers. The second tradition that this society has maintained is by presenting 50-year membership certificates to those who have been members for the past 50 years. Now, we have records that go back to 1904. Everybody that's joined since, we have them by name, address, and the year that they joined. The biggest influx of any one year was in 1918 and 1945. Those were following for World War I and World War II. All society activities during those war years, of course, were suspended. But our records show that there were 17 members made in 1961. I'm going to read them to you. You may know them. If you do, please acknowledge whether they're still alive, or we tried to locate them. Some we didn't, some we didn't, okay? Roger Anderson, Alexander Buca, Joseph Calzaretti, Richard Schmura, Patsy DiDabo, Robert Harrison, Clifford Henry, Richard Keller, John Kazaska, John McCricky. Come on up, John. Come on. Give him a hand, Tom. Give him a hand. Congratulations, John.
Where's the money?
Where's the money?
What? I can't stop anybody from...
I know a good lawyer, you know. It's your son-in-law.
He's got no money.
Huh?
I wanted somebody who's got some money so he can give it to me.
I know where yours
so I
is.
can give it to everybody here.
Yours is under the mattress. I know, John. Under the mattress. Alan Nealons, John Nezik, Edward Paterick, Adam Pierce. We lost Adam on Easter Sunday. His funeral is, his wake is this week. Our hearts go out to their family. Edward Rajon and Frank Scour Jr. Those are the ones that joined in 1961, and we honor their memories. If not, the certificates go to them. Our hearts go with you. Thank you. Okay. Now, the third tradition we have, long-standing tradition, is to honor the longest tenured member by presenting him with the society cane. Now, the longest tenured member is not the oldest member. It's the one that's joined the society years ago and maintains that position. This cane, the cane is presented to that member to hold for during the course of his natural lifetime and passed on to the next longest tenured member after his death. Since that time, this cane has often been referred to as the kiss of death. But to most recipients, this cane has been a symbol of longevity, long life. In fact, most the holders of the cane have lived into their late 80s and 90s. The name of each holder is engraved on the ring of the cane, and there have been 19 holders of that cane since its adoption. The current holder, and I'm very happy to tell you, is here tonight, We presented him with the Society Cane last year, is Arthur Allen of Hazardville, who joined in 1941. Arthur, where are you? Stand up and take a bow. God bless you. There it is. And we watched that cane very closely because that should never leave the town of Enfield. And the last holder was Matt Gray, who worked for Bigelow Sanford Carpet Company back in the early days. And when they went south, he went south, but the cane stayed up here. So you understand that cane stays here. All right. And we enjoy long life with it, Arthur. We love you. Okay. All right. Now, the society has two, the president of the society has two specific prerogatives. And one is to name the clergyman for the annual banquet. And unfortunately, we had arranged with Father Gush, whose family roots are here in Enfield, to be the clergyman. But at the last minute, had a conflict with the higher-ups and couldn't make it and canceled out. But our hearts and thoughts are with him, and we hope that sometime he'll be back to officiate for us. The other prerogative that the president has is select the master ceremonies for introducing the speaker. At this time in the program, we also have taken the liberty to introduce a new idea. We honored the dead, we honored the living, but this time, as we have in the last couple of years, taken the opportunity and the privilege and the pleasure of honoring the military veterans who have served in the military service of the United States of America, both men and women, all over the world. And once again, with this budget crisis down in Washington, that ticks me off. This is the third year I expected that they would send up the Army-Navy band to perform a service here tonight. And they give me this stuff about the budget. I mean, we know about the budget crisis. I mean, you pick up the papers, pick up the television, radio, whatever it is, and so forth and so on. And, you know, they made a mess of it already. But, you know, up here, we're doing our thing, and we're doing it our way. So what they did as a substitute, they sent us two leftover veterans. Army bandsman Dubinowski and Navy bandsman Parakilis. Front and center. Now, there are many veterans of previous wars, from World War II up, that are in this congregation tonight. When you hear your military song, stand up and be recognized. And you people out there, recognize those veterans. present the Senior Assistant State's Attorney for the State of Connecticut Criminal Justice System, our good friend, member John Malone.
Hello again. You know, it's a mixed feelings. I'm here tonight in place of Bob Berger. It's an honor to stand in for him, but I'm sorry he's not going to be here tonight to share his experience with you. It would have been a wonderful tribute to the probate system to have a person of his caliber, probate judge for many years, introduce the new probate judge, Tim Keeney. But I'll do it in his place, and I wish to join Chick in wishing Bob a speedy and complete recovery, as I'm sure you all do too. You know, when you talk about pinch hitting, it reminds me of a story about a barber. And this barber had a fairly large shop, and he was busy most of the time. A man came in and said, how long do I have to wait for a haircut? And the barber said, about 2 hours. So he said, okay, thank you, and walked out, never came back. A week later, the same guy came in, asked the same question, how long do I have to wait for a haircut? And he said, 2 hours. He said, thank you, left, never came back, and no haircut in between. Third week, he came back, and of course, by this time, the barber was wondering what was going on. And he said, how long do I have to wait for a haircut? And the barber said, well, I can probably get you in an hour and a half. He said, okay, thank you. Left. And he said to his friend Bill, why don't you follow that guy and see where he goes? So Bill went out and followed him. He came back about 20 minutes later, laughing hysterically. And the barber said, well, what did you find out? Where did he go? He went to your house. Now that's pinch hitting for you, isn't it? You know, I met Tim Keeney. First time I met Tim was 1972. And I was in the second year of law school and drilling with the Naval Reserve, having finished active duty. And Tim and I kind of found each other, I guess, and I talked to Tim about possibly drilling with the unit, and he joined the unit and came back, and by that time he'd already had a great start in his career. He had a degree from Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania. He was had served on active duty as a Navy SEAL, SEAL Team 5, 10-month deployment to Vietnam. And in addition, he was on the recovery team for 2 separate Apollo astronauts. He continued in the Navy for 32 years until he finally retired. And he went on a lot. By this time, of course, he completed most of that, the active duty, and he became managing editor of the Law Review, which was a very prestigious position at the law school at University of Connecticut. And then thereafter, he began his postgraduate career. He was on the U.S. Senate Appropriations Committee staff. He was at NOAA, which is the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, as general counsel and then director of Ocean and Coastal Resource Management. He then served in, many of you might remember, he was the Commissioner of Environmental Protection here in Connecticut. And he followed that with a position as director of the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management, one of the few people who've held the same position in 2 different states. He left government service for a while, went with Northeast Utilities as director of environmental services. And in the meantime, when he wasn't doing that, he completed a corporate environmental leadership seminar at Yale University, School of Forestry and Environmental Studies. I met him again when I was commanding officer of a Naval Reserve Unit, United States Forces Korea, which is based in New Haven. And Tim joined the unit as my executive officer. That was my last active assignment before I retired. And it was quite a reunion for both of us, we had some great memories. Tim stayed in the Navy longer than I did. His last position was commander of U.S. SEAL Forces out in Coronado. He then, of course, ran and was elected as the probate judge for the new probate district here. He's, in addition, I don't know where he finds the time to do this, but he was been on the Summers Board of Finance, the Summers Charter Revision Commission, and he and his wife, Mary, have 5 children. I don't know where he finds the time for all of this, but three was enough for me, I'll tell you. But it's with great pleasure that I introduce to you the probate judge for this district, Timothy Keeney.
Thanks very much, John, for that kind and warm introduction. John is a very special guy, and I think this is one of the reasons why this organization is so great and the town of Enfield is so great, is because people like John Malone come back year in and year out to celebrate all different kinds of things, from the Memorial Day Parade to doing work with the American Legion and coming back for this dinner and many other things. And he's here with his wife, Janice. He's been a great friend of mine ever since law school, and but for John Malone, I wouldn't have joined the Naval Reserve, so I owe this guy one heck of a lot. Another quick story about Chick Parakilis, and by the way, what a fine job he does. Let's give him a big hand. As they say, I'd almost say he's a one-man band, but he's a two-man band. Yeah. Anyway, just last year, and by the way, I'd like to just recognize some of the people in the audience too. Representative Dave Kiner, and former Representatives Karen and Steve Jarmock, I believe are here, or they were here. And Cindy Mangini, Councilwoman. But last year, when I think it was the Memorial Day Parade, Chick was out there in full regalia. You know, he had on the white knee socks and the tri-corner cap and the ruffled shirt. I mean, it was definitely a dated costume. But he was looking good out there. He was marching along, and I happened to look down, and one of the buckles on his shoe was coming unlaced behind it. So it looked like a safety hazard. So I said, Chick, you gotta do something about that. And just as I said that, Nancy Wyman came marching along. She says, oh, let me help. So she kneeled down, knee on the ground, and tying a shoe. But just so happened that a friend of mine was standing right there who had a big camera. So I got a picture of Nancy Wyman, now Lieutenant Governor Wyman, tying Chick's shoe. So about 2 weeks later, I stopped by his office and I said, this has got to be good for business. I made an 8x10 frame picture and I gave it to him. I said, you got to put this up on the wall. It's got to be good for business. Anyway, it's great to be here, and it's a real honor to be your speaker this evening. And I'd just like to say, first of all, what a great organization this is. And I think it's really important to the town of Enfield, and it's important for the people that are part of it, because it's got such strong ties to history and such strong ties to the community. And I think it says one heck of a lot about this community of Enfield, that this has been such a strong organization for 188 years. I'd like to speak tonight about, hopefully I'm not going to put you to sleep, but I think you might find it interesting. I'm going to talk about probate court system, what it is,
I'm going to talk about the recently consolidated probate courts statewide, a little bit of the relevant history of the court, the recent trends and challenges in the court, and how you may assist. And then I'm going to open it up for question and answer, so please hit me with some of those. I love questions. So, to start with, most people think probate court just deals with wills and trusts. And by the way, probate court is the one court that either you or members of your family will go to at one time in your lifetime. And so it's an important court. A lot of us, it's the only court that we will ever go to. So I think everyone's got a stake in the matter here. A couple of things I wanted to mention about the history of the court, because I think it's important, particularly with this organization for Thieves and Robbers. Its history is important, of course, and it sort of puts things into perspective. And I think it also gives you a better appreciation for the probate court that we have today as to where it came from. Back in 1633, the fundamental orders were signed here in Connecticut, which basically for the first time allowed local government to exist as a result of people appointing or electing those in charge rather than the power coming from the crown. So again, this was 1633. In 3 weeks ago, the probate court assembly, which is all the probate judges in the state, get together for an annual meeting. They get together several times during the year, but this was their annual meeting, and they had it at the Supreme Court in Hartford. And the Supreme Court, behind where all the justices sit, is this incredibly beautiful mural. It's about 8 or 10 feet tall and about 4 or 5 feet wide. And it's a picture of the signing of these fundamental orders. And it has, in fact, I swear there's a guy that looks just like Chuck Parakilis that's in this picture. I don't know what he was doing there, but they all have on, of course, the stovepipe hats, and it's pretty impressive, though. And to think that those orders actually later became the famous charter here in Connecticut, I think says a lot about the recognition of people like Thomas Hooker when they came to Connecticut, and how they were much more liberal than his brethren in Massachusetts, which I think is why he left, and how they were able to understand the importance of local government, of people electing their own representatives, and that's where it all started. So in 1636, the Court of Particulars, the first court in Connecticut, was formed. And again, it's the first time that power emanated from the people. From 1636 to 1660, there were 4 courts, one for each county, one for New Haven County, Hartford County, London County, and Litchfield County. And then in 1660, after the demise of Oliver Cromwell, and the crown, the royals came back in charge in England, they decided they wanted to get the charter back from Connecticut. They thought these guys are getting out of control. So that's when the famous story of hiding the charter and the charter oak came, and they never did get the charter. In 1712, 110 years before this society was formed, the probate court itself was formed, and it was known as the informal hands of justice. They didn't have robes. They had what we like to call eyeball-to-eyeball justice. People sat down. They worked out their problems. No fancy uniforms. The judges were elected to start with. Meant that by being elected, they were elected to 2-year terms. It means they had to be responsible to the people in those communities in order to be reelected. So they paid a lot of attention to the needs of the local community. And also, it was interesting with the independence of the colonies, when they all created all the new states, all the colonies followed Connecticut's rules. And the rules in the probate court from the beginning actually came from the Congregational Church, which I thought was interesting. Now, recent trends and challenges in the court. The court itself is known as the Court of Protection for estates, the elderly, children, and persons with mental retardation. So it's where people go to get help. And with the closure of state mental facilities, the need for guardians and conservators went up significantly, and also the need for civil commitments. So the court has a very important role in that regard. With the breakdown of traditional family, of course, no longer do we have the traditional Ozzie and Harriet type family. We have different families today, where in many cases it's difficult to know who the father is of various children because they were born out of wedlock. And because of things like drugs and alcohol, there are a lot of problems for children. In fact, with regards to children's matters in probate court, the number of those cases has gone up 400% over the last 2 decades. So they provide a very important function in that regard. As far as the elderly go, with the increased population of elderly, there's a lot of focus on elder abuse, especially those with limited executive judgment. Also, of course, you have elders being taken advantage of by children, especially children under the influence of drugs and alcohol, and those with mental illness. So that there's a great, the elderly need assistance. They need help. They need help from protection from financial exploitation. As we all know, there are a lot of problems that elderly have with regards to credit cards. I mean, we all have problems with credit cards, but I think the elderly in particular become sometimes exploited by people out there pushing credit cards for one reason or other. Before they know it, they're over their limit and they're in debt and they don't know how to get out of it. Scams, another thing that the elderly, I think, is susceptible to is scams. Saying, you just won X, Y, and Z, just give me your bank account and I'll send you all the money you just won. Well, of course, we know that doesn't work very well. Some of those mandates include things like rules of evidence apply in the cases. The cases need to be, the hearings need to be recorded. In the event that there's an appeal, the recording will be transcribed and will be presented to the Superior Court on appeal. There needs to be a great level of transparency in the process as well, so that people understand what's going on, why decisions were made, and there's a solid record that supports that decision. And also, one of the requirements is that conservators that are appointed need to, and the judge needs to understand this as well, needs to use the least restrictive means available to provide whatever assistance is necessary. So what that means is you've got a menu of different things that you can assign. For instance, if you have a conservator of the person, you can assign someone the power and authority to provide medicine to the individual. You can give them, additionally, you can give them the power as to where that person's going to live, which obviously is a very significant civil right that you're giving to someone else, letting someone determine where a person lives. Also the power of applying for various local and state and federal programs that might be advantageous to that person and provide assistance. Power to apply for those. Conservator of the estate is another, one is the conservator of the person. Conservator of the estate is the person who is given various responsibilities, including such things as power of the checkbook, power of receiving income, power of making investments. It can be something as small as power of the car keys, to take the car keys away from someone that shouldn't be on the road. You can limit the scope of authority of the conservator to something as small but as important as that. So the neat thing is that the judge gets to determine what the needs are of the individual, comes up with the least restrictive means available, and is able to apply that and find individuals that will serve in that capacity. The average age for conserved individuals today is 62 to 63 years old. 10 years ago, it was 72 to 73. So as you can see, the age is actually reducing. At the same time, the number of people living into their 80s and sometimes 90s is increasing pretty dramatically. And just like cancer, we all think have a capacity for things like dementia as we get older, so that inevitably with a greater population in their 80s and 90s, there's going to be more incidence of dementia and more need for assistance. And one of the neat things going through, they call it judge school, probate judge school, I got about 40 hours of training But the neat thing about it was that we had people like this Dr. Harry Morgan, who's a famous psychiatrist here in Connecticut, who gave us the presentation on dementia. And there are 6 or 7 different kinds of dementia. Alzheimer's is 60% of it, but there are other things like dementia with Parkinson's, dementia with HIV, dementia with alcoholic syndrome, and then there's all kinds of combinations of dementia that you can get as well. So it's a very complex disease, and you need to sort of understand as best you can what you're dealing with when you see it in the courtroom. So the challenge is, one of the biggest challenges for a judge and the staff, and by the way, I also should mention that the judge and staff do not provide legal assistance in court. That's up to the lawyers to provide, or if individuals want to come in on their own without a lawyer, which is not highly recommended. But the lawyers in court are the people that provide legal assistance. The judge and the staff really just provide guidance to individuals that need the use of the court. So one of the primary challenges is to find the proper level of treatment and services that might be appropriate. And this is where I think community comes into play, because communities are tremendously important to people, particularly as they get older. Obviously, families are important, but communities are important as well. And I think that's where this whole probate arena comes into play in tonight's agenda, because I'm recognizing the importance of this organization, this community. Well, this is another important element of a community, is how it handles people that have various needs, whether it be those with mental illness, those with other kinds of problems, those with dementia, those with alcohol problems, drug problems, you name it. So the question is, one of the big issues is, what is the reasonable risk that the judge is willing to accept for people that need services in the community versus going to a nursing home? Now, nursing homes may be appropriate for some people because they need safety. They need the protection for themselves. They need protection for others from them. Nursing homes might be appropriate. But in many cases, I think that there are facilities in the community that provide a better option, a better alternative. So, and we're not just talking about issues of civil rights here, we're talking about issues of economics. Now, a nursing home, the average cost for a nursing home is $10,000 a month. The average cost, and we're talking about average, the average cost for assisted living is $3,000 a month, and the average cost for assistance, caregiving, and other assistance that's provided in the home can be anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000 a month. So recently, Medicaid law was changed so that it can provide assistance to people in assisted living conditions and also people that stay in their homes. This is a tremendous opportunity for people to remain in their homes and remain in their communities. They have this program called Money Follows the Person, which if you don't know anything about it, I recommend you read up on it, because how, wherever you happen to be, Medicaid can provide assistance. So one of the important lessons here, again, is I think there's a strong need to keep people in the community. There's also a tremendous financial advantage to the state. And we know the state of Connecticut has a budget of $18 billion a year in the state of Connecticut. And we all know there's a lot of focus on it right now, trying to get some control over that budget. The biggest single item in the state budget is for nursing homes. It's $1 billion a year. So that kind of puts it into perspective as to why we need to think about alternatives other than nursing homes for those that need assistance. Also, with new medicines that can now prolong the sort of path of debilitation, there are new medicines that can keep people at a sort of a very minimal level of dementia for maybe as long as 5 years, longer than they used to be, because of the medicines that are available. That again allows people to stay with their families, stay in the community, stay close to their neighbors. So with conservatorships, another nice thing about conservatorships is we no longer have to be trapped by medical diagnosis. If it were left up to the doctors alone, I guarantee you there'd be many more people in nursing homes than there are right today. And one of the reasons for that is because probate court allows for much more discretion and allows for a menu of services available to meet the needs of those that need assistance. So probate court gets to focus on functional levels of individuals. It gets to provide street smarts to handle individual needs. It provides the ability to evaluate the legitimate amount of risk that the person is willing to accept and the judge is willing to accept to keep the person in the community. Now, of course, there is some risk to that, but people are willing to accept risk. It also protects vulnerable individuals from exploitation. Now, in conclusion, I'd like to say, again, building on the sense of community that we've talked about tonight here in Enfield, how you can help those in need of assistance. We have such things as lay conservators. These are people that we kind of try to bring into the court, try to get them to sign up to be conservators. That's something you might want to consider. Again, this is to keep people from languishing in various facilities. Guardianships for the mentally retarded. Those are other needs the court has. The problem with guardianships versus lay conservators is there's no remuneration, no fee that goes along with a guardianship of the mentally retarded. But again, in a community, we need to have more neighbors, helping neighbors. I mean, sometimes, again, as I said before, some of the people that are the worst violators of people's civil rights are their own family members. So it's really important that neighbors keep track of what their neighbors are doing, what their needs are. We need to look for more volunteers to give people access to such things as church, shopping, doctor's visits, hair salons and barbershops. These are all important things that people need to be able to get to, but need assistance to get there. So again, we need more support from the community, from families. And again, the principle I'd like to leave with you is the fact that, again, people have a right to refuse treatment and accept risk. And one quote I'd like to leave you with is for as Ralph Waldo Emerson reminds us in his writing, The Conduct of Life, which he wrote in 1860, he said, "The judge weighs the arguments and puts a brave face on the matter, and since there must be a decision, decides as he can, and hopes he has done justice and given satisfaction to the community. And so it is with hard work and humble hopes. My aim is to provide justice and give satisfaction to those I serve." Thank you very much.
You are already a member. You made your last year, so we can't present you with an honorary membership, but what we can do is to present you with the society cap, which we hope that you will wear with honor and distinction. The Society for the Protection of Thieves and Robbers. How about that?
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your labor here tonight. Thank you very much, Judge. Before we conclude the festivities for this evening, I want to recognize the Committee on Arrangements, our Ray Aiken, Ray Leskowitz, our Treasurer, Attorney Mary Bergamini, J. France, Buddy Brown, Bill Cody, Chief Foy. I resurrected you how many times tonight? Ron Gregory, Lee Hawthorne, Danny Jasminski, a real worker, Ted Palmondon, Deputy, I used to say sheriff, but he's now a state marshal, so be very careful. And distinguished member of our organization, Dr. Salva. Thank you very much.